How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we've got another review. Today we're going to be reviewing this 2019 Acura NSX. Now before we actually get into today's review, I did just want to mention that this car is actually currently for sale at Aston Martin Summit, New Jersey. It is actually one of their pre-owned vehicles, so I'll leave a link down in the description below to their website as well as the specific listing for this particular NSX. Definitely go check them out, and obviously a huge thank you to them for letting me film and drive this car today. Now, actually getting into the review, one of the things that I honestly love most about this specific NSX is the overall design. It is a very aggressive and slanted vehicle. I really like this factory white paint color, which was actually one of 8 exterior paint options for this year. It's pretty much like a kind of flat Arctic white, and it is really complemented by the different carbon bits around the car. You can see this 3-piece rear carbon spoiler going along the back here, as well as all the different vents around the car. Now, one thing I really like about these NSXs is the engineering behind them, and all the vents are in fact functional, and we will kind of go on and talk about more about the engineering and engine and drivetrain in a bit. But anyways, I do just really love the design of these cars because it just looks so aggressive in the front, and also the thing sits very low and wide to the ground, which I think is really awesome. And one thing I actually do kind of find funny about this just exterior are the factory wheels on it. If you see in the center cap right there, they actually do have the Honda badge, which I think is pretty damn hilarious. And this NSX is actually going with a staggered setup, so there's 19-inch alloy wheels in the front as well as the 20-inch wheels in the back. And in the front, it looks like they're wrapped in 245s by 35s by 19s. And then moving on to the rear, they're actually 305s by 30s by 20s. So this car is all-wheel drive, but that added rubber in the back, those 305s in the back, is definitely going to allow it to hook even more. So the all-wheel drive, as well as the completely independent suspension, and obviously the car being mid-engine, is definitely going to make this thing very well balanced on the road, and I honestly cannot wait to drive this. So now moving on to the engine and the drivetrain of this 2019 Acura NSX. You could see, well, I mean, you can't really see that much. Everything is covered in plastic with this kind of a twin turbo V6 that's behind here. Everything's kind of just all covered in plastic, but underneath that plastic you do have a 3.5 liter 4-valve per cylinder double overhead cam twin turbocharged V6. And this car also actually does have 3 electric motors, so it is a hybrid for anyone who doesn't know. And overall, I do think that the engineering for this car is honestly absolutely phenomenal. When you actually start it up and it's not moving at all, like I was starting it up and kind of sitting it at idle right here before, the actual engine cuts off and it just kind of runs on the electric motors, and you can feel the instantaneous torque that the motors do offer. Now, that being said, I did not find out the specific power numbers for both the engine as well as the 3 hybrid engines, but I do know that combined this thing does make 573 max brake horsepower at 6,500 RPMs and 476 foot-pounds of torque right at 2,000 RPMs. So it's not incredibly powerful, but it is all-wheel drive. Again, it is mid-engine and completely independent suspension. This thing just handles amazing on the road. Now, the power actually generated from this hybrid platform, I guess, actually goes through a 9-speed automated manual transmission. So it's pretty much just like an automatic. You can, switch it over into a manual mode like a lot of these other supercars, and me personally, I think it is best when it's driving in that Sport Plus dynamic mode with the paddle shifters. Now, that also being said, even though I really love the engineering that went behind this NSX, or this generation NSX I should say, I do think, in my own personal opinion, that when Acura originally introduced this generation NSX, I feel like they were just overpriced, maybe just a tad bit. But this 2019 actually did originally have an MSRP right at $157,500. Obviously that's in US dollars, anyone watching overseas or whatever. But yeah, me personally, I originally thought that these NSXs were overpriced. Maybe I still think it, but especially when comparing it to maybe some of the other cars that it competes with. But I do have to say that, honestly, I mean, now that I'm actually seeing it in person, I still think it's a little bit overpriced, but I think that Acura definitely put a lot of R&D into this car. And honestly, moving on to the interior, I really love this red leather and Alcantara interior. Honestly, I have to say, because I mean, I just driven the C8 on my channel. If you haven't seen that review, I'll leave a link at the top of the video right now. But I feel like this interior is way nicer than the C8s. And honestly too, at the end of the day, pretty much all that stuff is, you know, personal preference and personal opinion. I did also just want to mention too that this twin turbo V6 with the 3 electric motors actually does get pretty good, you know, miles per gallon for a supercar. This thing actually gets 21 miles per gallon during city driving and 22 miles per gallon during highway driving, so pretty much the same. And for a combined average of like 21 miles per gallon. Now, moving on to the interior, another like little subtle feature that I really like about this car is once you hit the unlock button, you can see these handles actually just pop out for you, which honestly I think is better than the R35 GTR, because the R35 GTR you kind of have to push this in, which can be a little bit awkward, but I really like how those kind of automatically pop out. And to be completely honest with you guys, this might seem silly to some people, but I actually like how it still has like a keyhole for the manual key. Again, just in case your fob dies or whatever, you could still get in it with the manual key. So honestly, I feel like that's kind of overlooked, but I do still think that is really awesome. And I also think that this interior is really awesome. I honestly cannot get over this interior. This is obviously a 2019 model year, but for the most part, when they actually introduced this new generation Acura NSX, I don't really think they really updated the interior throughout the years. But I do really think that this interior offers like a lot, and there's tons of different options both on the steering wheel as well as the infotainment system when it's on and everything. I also really like kind of like the center console and how it kind of protrudes upward, and you have obviously the parking brake, reverse, and like all your kind of gear selectors right there. But anyways, without further ado guys, I'm actually going to take this thing for a drive and show you guys my initial reactions. All right guys, so I did actually just want to correct myself with the dynamic driving modes for this car. So right now it actually is in Sport Plus, and you can tell that the V6, the twin turbo V6, is actually on at idle. And then when you switch it over to regular sport, it kind of cuts the gas engine, and you switch it over to quiet. And I mean, I guess that's just mostly electric, or whatever electric it has in it. Now back over to Sport Plus, it actually turns the engine back on. And then if you hold this button over, you will actually get put into track mode, where it does have all the power. So we are going to be driving it in track, as well as if you click the drive button again, it puts you in manual. So now basically every time I want it to shift, I have to use the paddle shifters. Plus it also does open up the exhaust, and this thing does sound very nice. Sometimes a lot, well, especially with like luxury vehicles, they're just so goddamn muffled that you don't hear the engine, you don't hear the turbos. But this thing, you hear everything, which me personally, I really love. Wow, this thing handles incredibly well. I'm very impressed with this thing. I mean, you can just throw this in a corner and it's almost like you don't even have to think about it, because again, just being mid-engine with the all-wheel drive, I think that is just a fantastic combination. And the fact that there's 2 turbos too, there's very little turbo lag. Yeah, almost as soon as you step on it, you have those turbos spooling up. It's almost like it acts like it's actually like a belt-driven supercharger or something like that. There's literally no lag whatsoever, which It's definitely a good thing because again, like going into corners, some of the older Porsches were notorious for this, but like going into corners and kind of, you know, stepping on it, and then all of a sudden the turbo lag basically hits once you're like around the apex of the turn and then you wind up going off the road. This thing is definitely not like that at all. The engineering behind this is really, really awesome. Oh man, wow, this is definitely one of those cars that, like, I mean, I don't know, it definitely makes me happy driving it. For some reason, when I was doing research on the car, I think it was either Edmunds or Car and Driver or whatever, but they had a review on it, and obviously, you know, I use those different websites for my personal information if I don't, you know something about a vehicle. And in one of the reviews, it said that the cons of this car is that it doesn't draw out emotion in the driver. I don't know about that because this thing definitely isn't bland, and it's not boring, and it is a lot of fun to drive. Yeah, especially with that exhaust note too. I mean, personally, I love how twin turbo V6s sound. I did the review on the 2019 Ford GT, as well as like the R35 GTR and probably a couple other twin turbo V6s. But I absolutely love how twin turbo V6s sound. Like, they sound so awesome. And again, that's just my own opinion. I also like how a big naturally aspirated American V8 sounds. But at the same time, these turbos just sound so, so good. And also these like the paddle shifters, it's just instantaneous with this car. One thing that I definitely don't like, and if you've seen any of my other reviews, you know I kind of complain about this a lot. I really don't like the fact that the paddle shifters are mounted to the steering wheel and they're moving, because right now if I want to downshift, I mean, it still is fun. It's really not that bad. But again, when the paddle shifters are mounted to the steering wheel, you have to like move your hands about. And me personally, if I had this thing on a track and I was really, really pushing it to its limits, I would be much more comfortable if the paddle shifters were just mounted to the column like they are in the R35 GTRs. Now actually switching it back over to Sport Plus, and then now to Sport, and then now to Quiet. Oh wow, oh my god, wow, that actually, it cuts the gas engine out completely. I don't know if you guys heard the difference, but over in track mode, you have this absolutely screaming twin turbo V6. Actually, the gas engine just kicked in a little bit, but once you get to speed, the gas engine actually completely shuts off. That is very, very interesting. So like right now, when I'm cornering and kind of giving it a little bit, you hear the gas engine working a little bit, but then right here it just cuts off completely. Now I'm completely under the power of just the 3 electric motors. That is honestly really, really cool. And to be completely honest with you guys, I mean, I'm sure you guys could probably figure it out by my just kind of unfiltered reaction of that, but I had no idea that this car actually does that beforehand. But like right now I'm going like 35 miles per hour, and it's 100% powered by the 3 motors that are electric in this car, and the twin turbo V6 isn't even on at all. That is honestly really, really cool. I really do think that Acura and Honda just in general really hit it out of the park with this NSX. Again, I still think that it's probably a tad overpriced when compared to other cars in its class, but the engineering behind this car is honestly just second to none. So anyways guys, that's pretty much just gonna wrap it up for today's video. Again, if you're actually in the market for this car, definitely be sure to check out Aston Martin and Summit. But like always guys, thank you for all the support, and I'll see you guys in the next one.